Welcome to DAX Machina. Join us as we explore the mysteries of this world. Cryptids, monsters, macabre tales, and horror stories abound. Could they be true? Are monsters real?
Good evening, folks. Thank you for joining us for another edition of DAX Machina. Joining me in the studio tonight is Robbie Rip Rain, Steve Wildman Monrotis, and Carrie Pocket Doc Davis. The four amigos, so to speak. You know, we can do the slap on the hips and like they did. We are the three amigos.
I just
Doc
think we need to do the herb
Nederlander.
I call Virgil. My arm don't work with the shit anyway.
You could be the singing swordsman, though, Steve.
There you go.
There you go.
All right, boys, how you guys doing tonight?
Wyatt, pretty good.
Rolling.
Speaking of Wyatt, looks like you got you some Tombstone characters up there.
I do. My sweet wife got them for me, so
Those are awesome.
yeah.
I
Funkos.
love it.
They are pretty cool. Gotta have the Tombstone pops. I've got them and the two guys from Boondock Saints.
Oh,
I got
heck yeah.
Captain America.
Captain America.
I got my
Of course
wife.
you would. Your dog's named Cap.
I got my wife all the Golden Girls. That's her favorite.
Let me guess. You're a Blanche guy.
Well, she got a T-shirt as a gift one time. It said Dorothy in the streets and Blanche in the sheets. And on our dishwasher, we got a magnet clean, and it's got Rose, and the dirty one's got Blanche.
That's amazing.
Oh, that is freaking classic. I love that. Oh my god, you guys crack me up. Oh. So, boys, you guys ready to possibly ruffle a few feathers tonight?
Always.
We're going to be talking about the scientific origins of Sasquatch, and shockingly, not a lot of woo in the conversation.
No,
we're not gonna deny the existence of the woo, but prior to 1970-ish, there really weren't any cases of the woo. That is something that has recently come into account, and if you look at all cryptid encounters across the board, it accounts for about 3% of the stories. So, might want to check your math there. If I could be wrong, but we're gonna be dealing with the 97%.
there you go.
Papa Bear says my favorite was always Sophia.
He's hilarious.
I was like Sophia too.
Richard Cox says I brought my feather duster. Start rustling. Start ruffling. Well, we are going to do just that. We've always maintained here that we try to follow the evidence. We try to follow the logical evidence. And again, we're probably going to ruffle some feathers here when I say nowhere else in the animal kingdom does something go through a portal or turn invisible. We've illustrated with MK Davis on the show how adaptive camouflage works. We've shown the doll sheep video. Robbie, who is a trained tracker, has talked about how animals will double back on their tracks. And if even 1% of these encounters of the missing 411, even if 1% of the missing people were taken by cryptids, if they could go through portals, we'd have been toast a long time ago. They would have taken us out. Wouldn't have been a thing we could do to stop them. And even if, like I said, 1% were man-eaters, there's nothing we could do to stop them. We never would have progressed scientifically beyond fire because they would have stopped us a long time ago. So, might ruffle a few feathers. I apologize if it does, but we are not on the woo train tonight, folks. We are talking about hard evidence and scientific basis for the existence of these creatures. Got boys with me so far?
Right there.
I'm keeping up. I'm still sober.
Well, it is early.
Not yet begun to defile myself.
That's right.
So,
Well, like I was saying, prior to somewhere between 1960 and 1970. So we'll, just for sake of argument, we'll say prior to 1970, Bigfoot encounters. Of course, they didn't have the name Bigfoot prior to 1957, but cryptid encounters of any kind did not involve anything telepathic. It didn't involve anything going through portals. It didn't involve anything cloaking. Those are recent developments. So if you can go with us on that logic train, we're going to go farther down. There's a gentleman by the name of Ivan T. Sanderson. Ivan Sanderson was born in Scotland, but became a naturalized U.S. citizen. He was born in 1911, died in 1973. He was a world-renowned biologist. In the 1950s and 1960s, he was kind of the Steve Irwin of the day. He was the guy that did the rounds of all the shows, brought on wild animals, talked about conservation of animals. When it comes to early conservation of animals, we've got Ivan Sanderson to thank. He's also considered, in many ways, the father of cryptozoology. He was one of the first true scientists to get on board to discuss the existence of these creatures. And Ivan Sanderson didn't talk about anything about any portals or any cloaking or anything like that. But he broke these things down into 4 basic categories. Neogiants, which would include anything over, say, 9 feet tall. These are your massive humanoids. These could be your mountain giants. These could be your Pacific Northwest Sasquatch that can reach 10, 12 feet tall, especially the ones up in Alaska that are reported as high as 15. Could also include the Genosqua and even the Gugway, because these are all reported to be in the 10-foot range or more. So these are your neogiants. Your next category is subhominid. Subhominids are slightly larger than people, more robust. Think the Patterson-Gimlin Bigfoot. Between 7 to 9 feet tall seems to be the average for these. They're big. They're slightly bigger than us. They're more robust than us, but they're not like super huge. Then we get into subhumans. Subhumans are your Denisovans, your Neanderthal. These are the ones, if you're familiar with Danny Vendramini's book, Them and Us, How Neanderthal Predation Shaped Modern Man. These are the ones that we believe hunted us, that hunted humans to the point where we have the uncanny valley, that we fear something that looks almost like us in the dark.
I was about to say that's where the uncanny valley comes from.
That is exactly where uncanny valley comes from. And if you haven't had a chance to read Them and Us by Danny Vendramini, I highly recommend it. Very good book, very informative. And when you look at the illustrations and the reconstructions they've done of Neanderthal skulls, it is essentially a perfect match for modern descriptions of skunk apes and a lot of Bigfoots, especially the ones that are closer to our size. The last category that Ivan broke them down into was proto-pygmies. And these include like pukwudgies. And there's 2 or 3 others that are reported, like the little people of Alaska. There are lots of places that report these little creatures. Sometimes they report them as wearing clothes. Sometimes they report them as being hairy. But there is lore for the existence of these creatures. The hobbits. What is it? What do you call them? Florensis?
Homo florensis. That's what they found in the cave. It was some island. I can't remember the name of the island chain they found them on. But there was like a cave dwelling. That's where they found all the bones and everything. Might have been.
Yeah, Lucy, the famous ancestor human Lucy would fit in that category. The orang pendek in Indonesia is another one. There's been some videos of them like running out of scrub brush while people are riding by in motorcycles. They get a glimpse of them, they run off.
I think orang pendek actually translates into small man or little man of the forest.
Yep, you're thinking the same one I am.
Estelle Harrington said it's Indonesia, so it wasn't the Philippines, it was Indonesia. Ken Brock says proto-pygmies like Doc.
Oh, and he stepped away. I think he missed it. Ken's going at some low-hanging fruit there, though.
That's true. Well, low-hanging fruit's all Doc can reach.
David Bass's devil monkeys, that would probably fall into that category.
Mm-hmm.
Although, we kind of speculated that maybe devil monkeys were more maybe young Gugway.
Juvenile Gugway. So it's entirely possible. Brandon Este, hey, I used to work with that guy at the hospital. He says the Rougarou is the Cajun version. Yeah, the Cajun Dogman. So these are the 4 basic categories that Ivan Sanderson came up with, and even with modern reports and sightings from across the globe, every human hominid sighting all over the globe fits into one of these four categories. They easily fit without any shoehorning or creative flexing of the evidence. Every modern sighting, and actually pretty much every sighting that I've ever read, fits easily into one of these four categories. Boys, what do you think?
I think you're onto something there. I'm all about scientific classification. I would love to personally see some of these examples, or get some footage that somebody's prepared when they come out of the brush or wherever.
I think that this is really a solid theory, because I think when you start looking at all the way people describe different sightings in different ways, instead of us always fussing about whether or not it's this or that, like you said, DA, if you start breaking everything down just like he did and they all fit in one of those categories.
Exactly. Eric Chesterman said, so would the theory of Homo sapien breeding out Neanderthals be false? I don't think so. I think there was interbreeding that took place. And if you read the book by Danny Vendramini, he talks about a Homo sapien woman being carried off by Neanderthal, sometimes for breeding purposes, sometimes to be eaten. And the fact that Neanderthal DNA still shows up in DNA of people across the planet, that seems to be the largest concentration of Neanderthal DNA shows up in Mongolia for some reason. But Neanderthal DNA is present in people all across the globe. But I don't think we bred them all out. I think some of them bred into our population, but these things were more robust than we were. They were built heavier. They were built for colder climates, and they ate things that we couldn't normally eat, like raw meat. So I think as human technology expanded and our civilizations grew, they recessed farther and farther into the hinterlands, like northern Canada, Siberia, the Rocky Mountains, Alaska, the Appalachians, deep forests where a lot of people weren't go, and they were perfectly suited to live in these harsh environments where we weren't.
I think that when you look at these different classifications, like you and I were talking about before we went on air DA, like my sighting, we both agreed right off Neo Giant. And we both agreed that some of these people who talk about the ones that are like hunters and put these things on a scope and say, "Oh, I can't shoot that. It looks too much like a human." That those fit into one of the other classifications, and the Genosko will fit in. Everything just fits so perfectly into this, and there's no irrational explanation. There's no, well, it must have done this because of this. It's not. No, this is the description. This is what it fits into. It's almost like our bread and butter about what we talk about and what we, for lack of a better term, what we preach about on this show. I mean, I think this is just a tailor-made show for us, just because it pretty much spells out what we've been saying since the start.
Exactly. And I think Ivan Sanderson was onto something with these four classifications, because even if you include Dogman into these categories, they still fit into one of those four categories easily. Dogman, since most Dogman sightings are reported between 6 and 8 feet tall, they would fall into the subhuman or subhominid category, to being human size or just slightly larger.
Well, it makes sense. I do like this natural classification things, and maybe it's the biologist in me. Just I like having a bin to put things in, we were kind of alluding to the more supernatural or metaphysical stuff earlier. You made a very good point. There's something called the Kardashev scale, which basically it outlines like how advanced a civilization is, and the higher on the scale, the more you can control. So, like at a certain level, you can control the resources of a planet. At a certain level, you can control the resources of an entire star. You can control the resources of an entire galaxy. Okay, if you're thinking of something that can portal out of our reality, you're basically arguing they can move from one universe to another. So this is going to be a civilization that has the ability to control the resources of an entire universe, and then some. That's a leap. That's a huge leap. And you made a very good point. Okay, if you're not even a level 1 civilization, and these things are like a level 5 or whatever because they could do this, we're screwed.
Yeah, we would stand no chance.
Absolutely screwed. You're talking a finger of God. They could turn our sun out. That's the kind of power you'd be dealing with here.
And I'm not saying that people that have had these experiences that people refer to as the wheel, I'm not saying they're making it up. I'm not saying they're lying. We're not saying any of that. But what we're saying is that we've tried to present logical explanations for why some of this stuff is happening. People that don't understand how things work will often, look for any explanation that they can lock their eyes on, lock their brain around. Like what I was telling Robbie, if him and I had never heard of adaptive camouflage, and we'd never heard about, like people being able to hide in ghillie suits, if we'd never heard of any of that, but we were out in the woods and saw, very much like in the Freeman film, if we saw a large black Sasquatch walk in front of a tree and disappear, we'd probably look at each other and go, that damn thing just turned invisible. And that would be.
It's like I've told people many times. If I hadn't gone to the classes that I went to about tracking and known what to look for in a backtrack, I couldn't look at a track and tell that something backtracked, because there are so many minute details on a track that that you have to look at to tell what. It's not like it's just blaringly obvious that that's what happened. You have to look at it and know what you're looking for. And I'm not, by no means am I saying I'm an expert at that, but I do know what to look for. And if I look at it long enough, I can spot those things. But if I'm just out there just following a set of footprints just because, hey, there's footprints and I'm following them, and they just stop, I'm probably going to think some of the same things that, well, where'd it go?
And I've had some people ask me questions about tracks. So like, well, what if you're in the middle of a snowfield and you find 4 or 5 tracks and then don't find any more? How do you explain that? Well, I can't explain it, but my first solution is not they went into another dimension.
Yeah. I can't explain how oxygen works in my body. I just know that when I take a breath, it's going to be there, but I can't explain exactly how all that works.
It'd be like, if Robbie or I went to a crime scene and we had to break into the house to get into the body. We knew there was a dead body in the house. If we can find, other than our own, if we can find no signs of forced entry, no method of entry to the building itself, and the guy's keys are in the house, but he was obviously murdered, we can't just go, they must have been a portal. Guarantee you we'd be going for a psych eval. There is no way you're going to be able to present that as evidence to a prosecuting attorney. You've got to be able to back up something, even if it's just a theory. So I can't make that leap of the imagination to they went through a portal just because I can't find their tracks anymore. There's got to be a physical explanation. Backtracking does account for a lot of it. Maybe they are just damn good at hiding their tracks. And we know that can be done as well.
Well, I'm struggling just from like a thermodynamic standpoint, where they would get the energy to do that. They've been talking about how we'll never have transporters like they have on Star Trek, because the amount of energy required to completely disassemble all the atoms in something would be more energy than our sun can put out in like 10 years.
Yeah.
What kind of energy would it take to actually shift from one universe to another?
A tremendous amount of energy.
I was joking with somebody about it the other day. I'm like, just the energy input alone would ignite the atmosphere. The shit would get real in a hurry.
Well, CERN was able to open a very small portal for a few fractions of a second, but it took a dedicated nuclear reactor to do it.
Yeah, you're talking teravolts of power or terawatts of power. It's that's ridiculous.
Doc, what do you think, brother? You've been awful quiet.
I've just been listening, man. No, I mean, it's like Valerie said. Common sense would dictate that we would have cataloged these things, and like Steve said, having a nice little bin to put them in. It definitely the information that Sanderson had and that video that you had sent us to watch, it definitely makes sense and lends credence to everything that we know from the Bigfoot lore now, and how it has and really an ancient origin, man. I mean, it's way old. So I don't know, man. I think it definitely puts more, lends more credence to the scientific than the paranormal.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we've said it many times. Every First Nation tribe has a legend about something like this.
Absolutely.
And every country.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And even like the Alma, the Almasti, the Yurin, the Yowie, all of those would fall easily into one of those 4 categories.
Absolutely. I mean, looking, in Australia, the Aboriginals. I mean, they've been talking about it for many years. It's part of their lore, just like the First Nations and the Native Americans here. It's part of their lore.
Now, what about, just for argument's sake, what about our Wendigo? Is that just a whole different kind of critter, or would we be looking at the same kind of classification for them?
Well, the Wendigo being the nature of what it is, if we were onto something with our possible disease theory, then yes, it would just fall into one of these weird categories. But if it's something beyond, I mean, I'm not denying the existence of the supernatural. I just don't think it applies to Bigfoot.
Right.
I gotcha.
One thing that a lot of people pointed out. Oh, sorry, Steve, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, if we're going to, if we're going to follow, organized religion as gospel, no pun intended, there's stuff that you can't explain away there with natural processes, right. Transfigurations and things like this. So, yeah, I mean, if you're believers like many of us are, I see you. I get it.
Well, I mean, they're no matter what you believe, if you believe in evolution, you have to have a certain amount of faith. Some would argue more faith to believe in evolution than you do, because there's things in evolution that scientists cannot explain with anything other than time. You have to have a certain amount of faith to believe anything that you're going to believe. Nobody knows anything for 100% certainty. It's just so there's no. It means nothing that we have to have a little faith to put these creatures in this category or that category any more than it is that somebody has to have faith to believe that they walk into portals.
Exactly.
It is what it is. It's just what side of the camp are you going to put your tent on?
And another thing is, the Native Americans have described a lot of supernatural abilities to the Bigfoot type creatures, but they also ascribe supernatural abilities to wolf, raven, coyote. In Native American mythology, all of these animals have a supernatural element.
And what did Noah say about these? And I mean your son Noah, not Noah the Bible. What did he say about if we went back and showed this to Alexander Graham Bell? What would he call this? He would call it magic. So who's to say that the supernatural that the first native tribes kind of prescribed to these things were just not things that they were doing in nature that they just didn't understand? Doesn't mean that it actually was supernatural. Just stuff they couldn't explain, didn't have the knowledge base to explain like we do nowadays.
Right. Billy Mitchum says, heck, we would have found it by now. The only thing I could think might be looking into sound or vibrations. I think we have found it. I think it has been found dozens of times, and our government just does not want to share that knowledge with the world, because if they are another sentient hominid species, then we have to share the planet with them, and they don't want to do that. That would mean sharing of resources. That would mean giving up huge tracts of land that they control. That they follow the money. They have a vested interest in keeping these things secret. And you can, Steve and Doc can back me up here. If you look at the fossil record dating back to, say, Neanderthal or Heidelbergensis or Denisovan, at no other time in human evolution has there been only one hominid species. But we're supposed to believe that now there's only one.
Right. Yeah.
Well, like I said, I mean, you have to have faith no matter which side of the camp you're on.
But to me, it's just which side, it's not just which side of the camp you're going to put your faith in, but which side really makes more sense. Are you looking at this from a logical perspective? Are you looking at this from a purely emotional perspective? If you don't understand how how adaptive camouflage works, even though we've talked about it numerous times, if you don't understand how these clear hair shafts work, and you saw that video of the Freeman footage where that black Bigfoot stopped in front of a tree and just disappeared, you would think cloak, or it turns invisible, or it went through a portal, some kind of magic. But when you factor in adaptive camouflage, the clear hair shaft, natural ghillie suit, it makes a lot more sense saying it's got this ability to do that, instead of it being something fantastical, something beyond normal science.
Well, and I think some people, I don't think that it's so much that they care one way or the other, but if they don't have these magical powers or these things, I think somehow that might diminish what they are in their minds, and they want to hold on to that because it's not enough that it's an undiscovered species of North American great ape that's gone undiscovered for however many years. That's not enough. It has to be something more, which to me, that's, I think it's a fantastic creature that is worth study, and just because of what it is.
Exactly.
But, I think a lot of it is just not wanting to let go of that fantastical idea, this mythical creature that, can walk through walls and do whatever it wants to do. It's just an animal at the end of the day that kind of pierces that veil in even more, like we've talked about before.
Well,
Steve's muted. He's trying to say something.
Oh, sorry, Steve.
Sorry, that's operator on my part. I think you made a good point, and the comment that was up on the screen just a moment ago, Valerie's comment, germ theory isn't that old, and we used to think that diseases were caused by imbalances in the body's humors, and then the Pasteurs and the Listers and the Kochs of the world, discovered that there were little living microscopic elements that were causing these things. The biogenesis theory, back during the plague. It used to be believed that, if you put a big pile of dirty laundry in a corner, eventually it would synthesize rats. Because they never saw the rats walk into it, they assumed the laundry made the rats. Wasn't that long ago. And so we may, as we're learning every day, we may get more and more evidence that helps explain this for us and take some of the magic away from it.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem, Steve. I think sometimes if they feel like they let go of the magic, then that makes the creature less of what it is.
Yeah.
Robert D says, but Robbie, you have non-believers say they've seen them do this, so they were not looking for these beings. They're trying to explain what they saw. If they had no idea what adaptive camouflage was, and like on the Freeman film, if they had no idea that this thing could stop in front of a tree and blend in perfectly, they would assume it turned invisible or it stepped into another dimension. It is a leap of the imagination, but it's an attempt to explain what they saw. We're looking at far more logical, more down-to-earth reasons on why these things can do this. Don't everybody talk at once.
Are you finished? Sorry, I was so captivated by your speech.
Yeah.
But yeah, and to kind of piggyback off what you said to Robert's comment, just because I'm a non-believer in Bigfoot and I see it do something like that I have no clue what that is. I mean, you can look at that and say, I'm from a third world country and I've never seen an airplane before, and all of a sudden this big metal bird takes off making this ungodly sound. you know, how are they going to explain something like that? What are they going to call it? 747. They're probably going to call it some kind of monster.
Dragon or demon or giant bird.
So, but that
Something.
doesn't mean that's what it is. That's just they're trying to explain in their limited capacity of what it is. They're trying to explain what it is, and if somebody sees a big creature, like you said, mysteriously vanish and doesn't understand how adaptive camouflage works, your mind's going to try to rationally explain it, sometimes irrationally, depending on the situation, and that's just where it is.
I agree.
Robert D says, but DA, that idea would not work in your home. Just saying, what do you mean? Wouldn't work in my home?
I think he means that if the animal disappeared within your home, you couldn't explain it away as adaptive
nobody's
camouflage.
ever saw one disappear in their living room. I have had yet to read a single account where one walked into somebody's living room and just disappeared. They've always disappeared in the woods. One of the accounts I took from a Cherokee gentleman down near Miami, Oklahoma, said that he walked around a corner in a trail and saw one standing just a few feet away. And it looked at him, put its hand up to where he couldn't see its eyes, stepped back in the foliage and disappeared. I said, do you think it like cloaked or something? He goes, no, it's just so good at camouflage. When I couldn't see its outline anymore, it was just gone.
Yeah, I mean, and Doc and DA both, you can speak on this being in the military. We've said it before. If we can train people to do that, which we can.
Oh, yeah.
What can something that is born with a natural ghillie suit and does this every single day of its life? What can they do?
Yeah.
Robert D says, Robbie, but I'm sure a lot of non-believers have heard of these beings, unlike the tribe thought. Well, the Norse, the ancient Norse thought that the northern lights was the light of the Bifrost Bridge reflecting off the Valkyrie's armor. We know for a fact that ain't the case, but they had no other explanation for it. Even though they knew what the northern lights, they knew they were a fact, they knew they happened almost nightly, that's how they tried to explain it. If they don't understand, if a person doesn't understand how something works, they're going to fill in the gaps. They're going to try to find something that explains what they saw. It doesn't necessarily mean it's right. I mean, just because, like the example of the Freeman film, we now know, or at least we have a very good working theory on why it vanished when it stopped in front of that tree. It didn't turn invisible. It didn't step into another dimension. It blended in perfectly with its surroundings. The clear hair shafts and the adaptive camouflage have shown us, like the video we showed of the doll sheep that Robbie had. There were close to 30 doll sheep in that video, but you didn't see them until they moved.
Yep. Let's Harry and the Hendersons. Let's use that. We've used that example before. There was no CGI involved in that movie. There was nothing. There were actors in suits that were told to stand still. And even now that you know that's there, you still cannot count every one of those actors. I know people who have tried. You can't. You cannot see over half of them until Kevin Peter Hall walks by, which was their mark or their cue to move, and they start moving. That is adaptive camouflage. That is exactly what happens in the wild. These things are so good at camouflage that it appears that they disappear. If you can coin the phrase that way.
Bicolor Hippo 89 says, I've heard several accounts of these beings appearing and disappearing within homes. I'm not going to say somebody's lying about that, but I can tell you, I've looked across the room and thought the pile of laundry in the corner was a human by the shape of it, and then turned on my light and realized it wasn't there. It could have been them waking up from a dream. It could have been. There's a lot of explanations that don't involve portals or turning invisible, or they would have seen something in their house and it being gone, or it wasn't a Bigfoot at all. What if they saw an apparition? What if they saw a ghost? Lots of people have seen ghosts. I certainly don't dispute the existence of ghosts. But just because they saw a humanoid dark figure at the end of the hallway that was gone when they turned the light on, doesn't mean Bigfoot dimensioned in and out of their house.
And Robert D says he's got an open mind about. That's fine. Nobody's saying that you're wrong, and nobody's saying that you can't have that opinion. We're just explaining how this is what we feel and what we think. That there is no cloaking, there is no walking into portals. But if somebody doesn't want to believe that, by all means, believe what you want to believe. There's not one of the four of us are ever going to say, "Oh, you're stupid," and tell you to get on out of here with your ideas on this show, because that's not what we're about. We're just explaining what we think and what we feel and how we are explaining it.
What appears to be the most logical course.
Well, and Robbie made a very good point. You're entitled to your own feelings on things. If we were to boil this down to the very strict evidence-based only, as far as I'm concerned, there are no cryptids because I've never seen one. Now, I have an open mind to be willing to accept it, and you guys start giving the evidence. I tell everybody I'm the agnostic. If you guys are the believers, I'm the agnostic. I want to believe. But I've either been fortunate enough or unfortunate enough that I've never seen a Dogman, I've never seen a Bigfoot, I've never seen a pile of Bigfoot crap. I've never seen any physical evidence that tells me that Bigfoot exists, personally. But I've seen enough evidence out there that's getting me scratching my head going, I want to learn more about this. It's worked for the couple of years we've had the show run, and I'm going to keep running with it. Because
He asked, he says, so how do you explain the UFO body taking then? We explain that by just what it is. I mean, even our government has admitted that UFOs are real. And the UFOs have been coming around our planet for a very long time. We're not disputing that. I'm a firm believer that there's alien life out there and that there's intelligent life in the universe. We are far too small of a section of the universe to be the only intelligent life. It's like the shark analogy. It's you take a teaspoon and you dip a teaspoon of water out of the Atlantic Ocean and go, sharks don't exist because there's none in this teaspoon. We're not disputing aliens, but this is apples and oranges. We're not talking about aliens abducting people. We're talking relic hominids. We're talking Bigfoot type creatures. And to me, and again, if you don't agree with us, that's perfectly fine. That's what the show is all about. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. But to me, the most logical course, the most logical train of thought is that these are physical beings, and we are looking for logical explanations on why they disappear, why their tracks end in the middle of nowhere. And I think it's a far more believable to think that they have adaptive camouflage than they went into another dimension.
Calm down, Ken. I'm not going to get off on that tangent.
It'd be nice.
Miss Lene says, "Oh no, DA said shark."
Gotta stress him out.
Doc, what do you and Steve think from a medical point of view?
From a medical point of view or a scientific point of view?
A scientific point of view. You guys have more science background than I do.
I mean, it's a living, breathing creature with blood and organs and cells. So the theories that the Sanderson guy was talking about with the different categories of creatures falls in line with everything. Like I said earlier, it falls in line with everything we've been hearing for years, and everything First Nations and indigenous tribes have said for years. So it's a, can it be sentient? Can it be tool bearing, tool using? Can they have their own languages? Can they have a tribal, structure? Yeah, absolutely. Do I think they're aliens? No, that's my opinion. Everything we're saying here is opinion, but other people can have their own opinion. You're always free to have your own opinion, but this is a living, breathing creature that not everybody has seen. Why have people not seen them? Because they probably choose not to be seen. From whatever has happened in the past. Maybe they did. Maybe they were hunted. Maybe they are an ancient tribe that has been, pushed out, or they, have, like you said, we've had multiple species or multiple hominids living at the same time. Maybe they just don't want to be seen. That's just, it's like, the Bigfoot thing, one of my favorite bumper stickers is, Bigfoot world champion, undefeated hide and seek, or undefeated
world hide and seek champion.
Hide and seek champion. Yeah. So, I mean, if they want to be seen, they'll be seen. If they don't, they're not. And just because they can disappear in the woods, well, hell, damn rabbit can disappear in the woods. How many of y'all? I've seen a rabbit, out in my front yard, and I didn't know it was there until a little sucker moved, because he blended in so well with the prairie grass and everything out there. And he was laying right out in the open with his ears laid back. So,
yep. I've never killed a deer that I didn't see him move first.
Yeah. Exactly. Just like the doll shit thing that you did, Robbie. So
somebody mentioned that. Oh, sorry, Steve. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Oh, I was going to say, we're discovering new species every day, and sadly, we discover them shortly before we make them extinct. But we're discovering things. You can't prove a negative. There is no way you're ever going to find enough evidence to say there is no Bigfoot. Negatives aren't. They've had people for years that have tried to prove that there's no God. Philosophically, you can't do it, regardless of what your religious beliefs are. It's a philosophical fallacy. You can't prove a negative. You can only prove a positive. If you find Bigfoot comes and knocks on my front door and asks for a cup of sugar, I've proven Bigfoot, but I can't ever not prove it. As far as the intelligent life thing, I'm willing to accept there's intelligent life on this planet besides us, because I'm not convinced that we're even intelligent life. Sometimes, it may be somewhere else in the universe because we ain't finding it here. The stuff's got to be out there, or at least I'm willing to believe that it could be. I'd like to see it, hopefully not microseconds before I become its food, but I would like to, to have that confirmation.
But there are plenty of examples in the animal kingdom of adaptive camouflage. Species of owls camouflage. The snow leopard is perfectly adapted to its surroundings to camouflage. Deer are another great example. Just like Robbie said, every deer I've ever shot, I only saw it because it moved. Adaptive camouflage is a thing. And since we know it exists across the animal kingdom, why is it such a hard explanation to think that it might be present in Bigfoot as well, especially in a creature that doesn't want to be found and is intelligent enough to make it happen? Valerie Juice gave us a super chat. Awesome. She says,
"Hey, Val.
The CIA showed interest in ESP and telepathy only after Russia was doing experiments with remarkable findings and results." That's true. I can't remember the name of the project. If Noah was here, he'd know. Just right off the top.
They were doing the remote viewing box
remote viewing
thing.
And ESP.
I watched the video on it too.
That's the same thing as like the movie The Men That Stare at Goats, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was the name of that project?
Yeah, Noah would know it right off the top of his head. I can't think of it. MK Ultra. Yeah, Richard Cox was right. MK Ultra.
Yeah. I was trying to think what the Russian project was. My guy on Y-Files did a video on it. And I was like, that's some scary shit.
Which one?
Oh, that there was a device that Russia built. It was basically almost like a metal tube. Looks a little bit like a distillation tank you see for making beer or something like that, a brewing tank. And it was made out of was to certain specifications, certain dimensions, and somebody could go in there, and while they were in there, because of the structure of the device, they could essentially remote view other places. And there was literally documentation of things they said they saw, and they were able to validate some of this stuff. And the device was named after the scientist who built it. And so it was like a, Blonsky machine or something, whatever this guy's name was. I can't remember what the hell it was. And I'm madly digging right now on what it was called. But it was the evidence that the CIA gathered about this device that kind of was the impetus to start the MK Ultra project. because like the Russians have this shit. And supposedly you can actually like download plans and build your own one of these doohickeys.
Awesome. I'll put it right next to my nuclear reactor.
There you go. But again, to reiterate the same thing Robbie was saying just a minute ago, we're not claiming that the woo doesn't exist. We're not saying that people have had these experiences are lying. We're not saying that they made it up. What we're trying to do is offer a far more logical, earth-based solution to what is a growing problem. The evidence is mounting on the existence of these creatures, and it's only a matter of time until the government just can't deny it anymore. I think personally, there's plenty of evidence. I mean, eyewitness testimony alone is enough, in my opinion. We've sent men to prison. We've sent men to the electric chair on eyewitness testimony. But suddenly it's no good when it comes to cryptids. Somebody earlier mentioned something about that it still doesn't explain why tracks disappear. We have covered that. Backtracking explains a lot of it, and I can't with 100% of certainty say when tracks have been found in the middle of a field that start and stop without other tracks leading up to them. I can't say that with any definitive knowledge on why they started and stopped without any other tracks. However, it's far more likely that these things have learned how to hide their tracks than it is to say, well, they just went into another dimension. To me, it's just you're trying to explain a mystery with another mystery. And right now, we've got to concentrate on proving these things exist before we can prove they do fantastical things beyond the scope of normal reality. What do y'all think?
I agree. I mean, it's like I'm not discounting anybody's experience. Whatever they saw, and I wasn't there. I can't hypothesize on it because everyone's experience they have is a very personal thing. That's their own individual experience. And if they believe that's what they saw, then they believe that's what they saw. And I can't refute that because I wasn't there. But like, I agree with what you said. We're just trying to offer a logical, scientific explanation to what is happening and to these creatures' existence, in and of itself.
Here's a thought. And Robbie, I know I'll put you on the spot here because I like putting you on the spot because I like to watch you squirm. But how about this? Let's say you and I went out to, and Doc can attest to how thick the woods are at Joe Bald.
Mm-hmm.
You and I go out to Joe Bald. The woods are thick. The ground has got plenty of leaf litter, plenty of cover, and I give you an hour head start. How hard could you make it for me to find your tracks?
Very. Extremely.
And I'm not a trained tracker. You would probably hide them from me, but you probably couldn't hide them from the guy that was the instructor at your class. He'd probably still find enough to track you by. I, however, would be lost.
Yeah, because and seeing that's the whole thing with this. I know there's people going to say this. There is no way you go in the woods and you do not leave some small form of trace evidence. That is not saying that. But if somebody is not trained what to look for, and somebody that is trying to not be seen does know what they're doing, it is really, really hard for the person who doesn't know what they're looking for to find the person that knows what they're looking for. Because like the very first day that they took us out in the woods, the instructions were when they sent two of us to lay a track, they were like, walk through the woods like you're a blind elephant. That is the exact instructions they were giving us. Make as much, break trees, break limbs, walk through the woods like a blind elephant leaving tracks. But now progressively as we got on further into the class, obviously that got, it got down to, walk through the woods like a mouse. And what's going to leave more trace, a blind elephant or a mouse? So you progressively get to the point where you know what you're looking for, and the guys that you're trying to find, they're trying to make it harder for you to find them. So you have to look for this stuff. But if you don't know what you're looking for, you might as well just be in a white room looking for a white paint mark on the floor.
Mm-hmm. So, yes, I can't explain why in the middle of a field, a set of tracks would start and stop without tracks leading up to them. But Robbie can just basically told us that if you don't know what you're looking for, he could hide his tracks. Again, not saying that's guaranteed to be the solution, but it makes a lot more sense than it entered this dimension, then went right back out again.
And, like I said, there are people out there that are way better at tracking than me. Maybe even some in the chat. I don't know. But I know enough about it. And don't say it, Doc, to be dangerous. Saw it. I know enough about it to where I can go out and I can hold my own. I can find my way in. I can find somebody that I'm looking for. I can find something that I was looking for. But it's just like what we're doing here. You always have to learn and seek to learn more about what your craft or whatever it is. I mean, and that's the whole point of these shows is we're trying to learn more about these creatures. And if we would stop fighting so much and start trying to learn from one another, because there's things that can be taken from both camps. But the problem is you got too many people out there who want to bark that it's my way or the highway. And, we're not calling any names on this channel because we never do. But I know DA knows who I'm talking about. And I'm sure Doc and Steve probably can figure who we're talking about. Is one of the biggest ones that does stuff like that. We're all on the same team. We're all trying to figure out how to prove the existence of these creatures. But some people just want to fight instead of sitting in a room and talking about it and figuring out and discussing things. And that's my soapbox.
DA frequently says there are no experts in this field. And, my dad always used to say, all an expert is a former drip. Is that really what you call yourself? I think the community working together is going to, give us the answers eventually. You start losing resources when you immediately, like DA said, my way or the highway. There are some in the community that, I'd be ostracized for the moment for not being a true believer. Okay, well, I'm a wanna believer. That's different.
Jimmy G
that's myself.
says, mate, I've seen kangaroo tracks disappear, and those damn things move by stomping and slapping the ground with their tails. Nobody's put forth the theory that kangaroos go through other dimensions, and yet their tracks can disappear. Grizzlies do it; they'll backtrack on their tracks. Rabbits have done it. When we know for a fact our special forces know how to do it. That is something that's taught at survival school and evasion. Doc, you muted, bud. Couldn't hear you.
I was just agreeing. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And like I said, at the risk of sounding like we're getting on soapboxes in here, but it's it's like every time you make a point, somebody out there has got a smart aleck comment or some argument. Instead of just saying, wow, that's interesting. I didn't think about things that way. That could be. It's like, no, what about this? Or you've got this and this. Stop for 2 seconds and listen to what other people are saying, and maybe you'll learn something. I've been to 4 conferences this year, and most all those conferences, I've been on the very small side of flesh and blood, and I have listened to tons of woo stuff, and I've actually learned some stuff. Does that mean I believe in woo now? No, it doesn't. But I've learned some stuff because I keep my mouth shut and I just listen to what everybody else has to say about it. Now, if I'm asked my opinion, I'll give it, because most of y'all know me and know that I don't care what somebody thinks of me. If they want to know my opinion, they're going to hear it. Don't matter if they like it or not. But if everybody had that mentality of just, let's just sit and figure this out, you don't have to have the last word. You don't have to have, yeah, but what if? But what about that?
Kenneth clearly believes in the Roo.
The Roo portals. Doc, you muted.
The ranger over here snoring his ass off, so I'm trying to kind of.
If we pick up a little ranger snoring, it's fine.
Yeah, snoring louder than I am. I said this the Roo woo. So
The Roo. And again, like Robbie's saying, we're not putting this forth as being the only way. We're just putting this forth as being a very logical-based, evidence-based approach to explaining some of these phenomenon.
It's not the way, it's a way.
It's a way. I've got another super chat from Valerie Juice. She said, my degree, equine science, horse husbandry, genetics is my game. The Dogman I saw at LBL, a color of black that doesn't exist in nature. There are no genotype combinations that produce that phenotype. There are no known ones. I think Dogmen are another subspecies. I think that they're probably by and large underground creatures, and a light absorbing black coat would be extremely beneficial to a subterranean creature. The one I saw in LBL was completely black, and I didn't see it until it moved. And I saw it in broad daylight. It was standing stock still, and my eyes passed right over it, and I kind of thought what was that? But it didn't register that it was something. It was just something by the tree. But when it turned its head and looked at us as we were going by, that's when I saw it move. And it was incredibly fast. And once it realized we had spotted it, it turned and it was gone. But that's a very natural adaptation, especially something that was bred underground. A coat so dark that it absorbs ambient light would make it very difficult to detect with the human eye.
movement.
Bicolor Hippo says it's also important to keep asking questions. Absolutely. It is, the only way we're going to learn anything is keep questioning things. But again, what we're trying to do is to give a perspective that's based more in science, that's based more in logic. We're having a hard time even getting most people to believe these things exist, let alone that they're from another dimension or they can cloak. Again, we're not saying that can't happen. What we're saying is that there are logical explanations that don't require something beyond paranormal, something out of the normal realm of science. That these things there are natural adaptations that explain why some of these things are happening. Robert D says, plus DA with a black coat, you can hide in caves in the night. Exactly. Especially if the fur doesn't reflect much light, you could pass right over it with a flashlight and never even notice it's there.
So, going back to the asking questions, that's the whole point of what we're saying. Like DA said, it's not the way, it's a way. But if you don't ask some of the questions that we ask, and you don't look in, if we didn't listen to all the other stuff that we don't believe, how do we have anything to compare our theories to? If we just come in here and say, this is it, this is how we believe, this is it. That's Steve, Doc, is that a fair scientific analysis if we do it that way?
No,
you got to have
muted, Doc.
No, I know. I was unmute. I wasn't talking. I just said I was just going no. I was mouthing it. So no, it's not. And that's all we're saying here is, it is an opinion. It is, are we saying that portals don't exist? No, of course not. I'm not saying a portal doesn't exist, but I would like to look for a more scientific, logical, rational explanation for it before I go straight to that. You know what I'm saying? because I'm a scientific person. I like to know scientific things. For I've had supernatural experiences that you can't logically, scientifically explain. So
that's a very good point, Doc. Doc's had paranormal experiences. I hadn't. Doc's one of my best friends. I don't look at him and say, "You're stupid." Well, maybe sometimes I do. You was waiting for it, wasn't you, Doc?
I was.
But I don't look at Doc and say, you're stupid. There ain't no such thing as that. I look at it and say, you know what? I would like to have one of those experiences so I could say that, yeah, I've had one. That they 100% do exist. DA's had them, but I haven't. So, Steve's in the same boat with the cryptid thing. He's not had them, but he's heard all of our stories. You have to keep the coin the old blood sport thing. You have to keep an open mind, because just because we don't think that it walks through a portal does not mean, or is not us saying that it can't. That's just saying you can't get from point A to point Z without going through all the letters in between. That's all we're saying. True. You have to start.
I like that. Yeah.
The first logical conclude or step, or the next step after you see it disappear, cannot be, hey, they jumped through a portal, because that's not the next logical step. You have to go through the logical progression before you check off razor, right, DA?
Occam's razor.
Occam's razor. I mean, I'm sorry. It's Chekhov's guns I was thinking of. But Occam's razor, if the logical explains it, then that's more than likely what it is.
Yeah, Occam's razor says the simplest explanation is usually the most likely. We got a super chat from Valerie Juice. She says, "I never claimed it absorbed light. It was so black you couldn't see any detail. Plus, the way it moved was like animation." I understand what you're saying there. But the one I saw, it was just absolute pitch black. So I'm not necessarily saying that this was necessarily absorbing light. But even if it's got any type of characteristics like clear hair shafts or anything like that, it would certainly explain its blending ability. But then again, I've walked right past wolves in the wild. If they're sitting still and they're not coming after you, these animals are very, very well adapted at blending into their surroundings. We also got a $5 super chat from Poncho Zorch. Thanks, Poncho. Appreciate it, man. Sorry, I was trying to catch up on some of the comments.
I was too. I think we all picked the same time to look at the comments.
I think we did too.
We're doing.
Wow, we're already an hour in. Holy crap. But to compound on what Ivan Sanderson built, there's another scientist, a British scientist named Dr. Myra Shackley. She's an archaeologist. And she came after this from an archaeological standpoint, looking at previous generations of hominids. She's famous for writing quite a few books, not all of them to do with the Bigfoot mystery. Some of them are scientific treatises. This lady is very well respected in the archaeological field. She took Ivan Sanderson's subhuman category and broke it down even further. She broke it down into two other categories. A creature called a Chuchana, which is about a 6-foot tall troglodyte that's known to live in Siberia, and then the Almas and Neanderthals. Basically, the subhumans were broken down into these two other categories, which again, when you look at them on the surface, it makes a great deal of sense, because the Chuchana doesn't necessarily look that human, but it's about our size, and it exists within our body parameters. It's slightly larger than us. It's powerfully built. It's strong, but it's adapted to live in rugged climates. And the Almas and Neanderthals, well, we know Neanderthal DNA is present in modern humans. Those probably could interbreed with us.
So
interesting.
I mean, it's another, like we said, it's a sound theory. I mean, We don't know for sure that that's what happened, but it's a logical conclusion.
Yeah, that absolutely is.
Edson Kidwell says orange, black, and white. Who would ever think that would be nearly impossible to see until it's on top of you? Yet tigers eat people in India all the time.
Well, think of zebras.
Mhm.
You know, there was somehow an evolutionary advantage for this critter to develop black and white stripes living in a savanna where everything is shades of dirt.
It's a tactical assault horse.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. But yeah, it is kind of interesting.
Just like a rhinoceros is a tactical assault unicorn.
That's right. High capacity.
Heavy assault
Mhm.
unicorn.
There we
Sorry.
go.
Heavy assault unicorn. Yeah.
But that I read something. It wasn't that one, but somebody else put something else about a tiger on there too. I mean, there we go again, though. Adaptive camouflage. Animals, they're set up to survive the best way they can in their environment. That's just the way they were designed. And yes, I said design, but it's the truth. Whether you believe they evolved that way or they were designed that way, it doesn't matter. The point is, animals are optimized. Trying to think of a neutral word. Optimized to survive the best way they can
Yep.
in whatever environment that they're in. I mean, polar bears are not white. You shave a polar bear, its skin is black. But what does it have to blend into? Snow.
Snow.
What color is snow and ice? White. That's why its hair looks white. That's why polar bears look white, but they're not white.
We had another super chat from Valerie Juice. She said, don't forget the opposite of Occam's razor, Hickham's dictum. I'm not sure that applies to cryptids, as Hickham's dictum says patients can have as many diseases as they damn well please. I'm not really sure that applies to cryptids, but I think I see your point.
Yeah. You know, I always prefer the simpler version of that one. Your dog can have fleas and ticks.
True. Punch Resort says, I wonder who the first person to shave a polar bear was.
I like this one.
Yeah, I know which one you're laughing at, Doc. No, Doc's not laughing at that one. Doc's laughing at this one.
I was laughing at that one too.
Oh, you didn't see the one below that?
The one where I paid good money to see Robbie shave a polar bear.
Yeah, that one.
I had it up there. Yeah, that was hilarious.
Only if you give me an Ardennes, Ken.
We'll film it.
Yeah, I was gonna say our next viral video.
We'll film it.
Oh my God! Speaking of which, I was watching a video today.
We'll narrate it like Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. While Robbie slips into the polar bear enclosure, we'll set back with a picture of Mai Tais.
Hear Morgan Freeman in the background. It was at this moment Robbie knew he had messed up. I'll be right back, guys. I got to hit the head.
All right.
I was thinking of your British Museum guy. Oh no!
It couldn't possibly exist.
Perhaps Rob has misjudged it.
No, DA would be like, hey, Robbie, go shave that polar bear. I'll be like, Steve, hold my beer.
Jimmy G says, make sure you use a scallywag to shave that bear, Robbie.
Seriously. There you go.
Eric Testament says, guys, sorry, got to bail. My youngest is at my ex's house, and I got a call from the police. I guess my ex is wanting... Oh, no, probably shouldn't read that on the air. Dude, good luck. You know where I'm at. We're close by if you need any help. So, good luck, dude.
Yeah, good luck. Prayers for you, man. Yeah, so one of the things you start reading, and all of a sudden you get to the right word, like, oh.
Yeah, they're like, oh, wait, maybe I shouldn't read that on the air. Penny Vance says, Robbie, tap your watch for me if the polar bear shows up.
Yeah.
I was watching a video just today. This guy was camping with his buddies, and somehow or another, this black bear wandered in their campsite. And so the dude hands his beer to his buddy and then calmly escorts the bear out of the campsite. And he gets to the fence that was enclosing this place. He opens the gate up. The bear looks at him, takes a swipe at him, and then walks out. And the guy just so calm, he closes the door, and he pulls his shirt up, and he's got these 2 long gashes where the bear popped him. And but it's like, dude, that was ridiculous.
Steve, that'd be what we call self-correcting error.
Yeah.
Robbie, did you see this one?
Yeah.
Robert D says you'll also need a Dark Angel kit too.
Yeah. I'm picturing you on the back of that snowmobile with a bounty. Just as quick as possible.
I'm sorry, Doc's my brother, but I'm not getting nowhere near around a snowmobile that Doc's got anything to do with, because we all know what happens to them.
I was going to say, just make sure you're not riding bitch, because that's the most dangerous part of the snowmobile when the wind goes around.
Be like that guy in the back half of the cow costume in Top Secret.
No.
No, spank you.
There's a blast from the past.
Great movie.
It is a great movie.
The underwater fight scene in the saloons.
Yeah, that one's classic. Well, in another book written by Lauren Coleman and Patrick Hagee. Oh, did I miss a? Oh, I did. I missed the super chat. Valerie Juice gave us another super chat. She says, DA, I was so close to that Dogman, I could have opened the passenger side door and hit it. I was coming at it head on, so I would have been staring down hair shafts. I'm not sure what to say about the color of the hair, but if it was that dark, if it was, just an absolute black creature in lightless situations, it's going to be impossible to see. Be underground or anywhere, even in the woods after dark where there's very little light. Something that is completely black is going to be very difficult to see. I know my little dog, he's brown, and if the lights are off in the living room, I'll still trip over him because I can't see him. He'll be laying in the rug, and I'll beep, like, sorry, Harley, I didn't know you were there. I'm gonna tie a bell around you so I can find you in the dark. But he's brown. He's not black. But you get good and dark, and he's hard to spot. But he's a brown brindle, so I guess that helps break up his pattern.
Yeah, Rangers.
He's cracking me up. I'm picturing like driving by and like literally throwing the car door open to his head. I don't know why that amused me so much, but
I'm door checking him.
Yeah.
But Lauren Coleman, who's a well-known cryptozoologist, and another guy named Patrick Hagee. It's Huyghe. So if I'm butchering the pronunciation of that last name, I apologize, Patrick.
Yeah, Hughie.
But it's a Higgy?
Hughie on that one. Yeah, Hughie.
Patrick Hughe. They went in even further. They broke up subhuman to include Neanderthaloid, which basically is Neanderthal, Denisovans, and anything that's very closely related to the Neanderthal. Folsom man or Piltdown man were probably very close to Neanderthal. Marked hominids, which included the Alma and the Yeren, and I would guess would probably include the Yowie and some species of Bigfoot, and Erectus hominids, which are human-sized. There are lots of reports of the skunk ape is said to be usually around human size. So we've got lots of different categories of what we thought are different subspecies of Bigfoot, which are actually fitting far more correctly into these subcategories. And I think if we took Sanderson's original 4 categories and then broke those 4 categories down into 6 categories by incorporating the subgroups of Lauren Coleman and Patrick Hagee, I think really that is pretty much includes every Bigfoot encounter I've ever read. Somewhat they will fit into one of those categories. What do you guys think?
I mean, you're not wrong.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's like anything else. You can still classify things in different ways without changing what they actually are. Like for example, you had that very popular chart of the different types of Bigfoot. The PG Bigfoot and the Dugway and the whatever. Okay, that classification works. It's completely potentially correct.
Mhm.
Well, then you look at Hughie and Company's classification. It's a different classification. Like you're organizing a pocket full of coins. Okay,
Right.
well, are you going to grade them by color? Are you going to grade them by size? Are you going to grade them by age? I mean, all those systems of organization, those systems of sorting, are valid.
Well,
It's just which one are you choosing to use?
it's kind of like, to use a little bit different analogy on it, it's kind of like saying this thing that powers a vehicle is called an engine, and all things that power all vehicles are engines. But then there's Fords, there's Chevys, there's Dodges, there's Chryslers, there's all these things. And, but this Chevrolet 350 has a 4-barrel carburetor on it, but this Ford V6 has a 2-barrel carburetor on it. Well, still all an engine, but each one of those engines are powered different. They're different sizes. They got different. So it's kind of like that. I mean, you can break that stuff like down, infinitely, but it's still an engine at the end of the day. And I think that's the point you're trying to make, Steve, is it's still some type of, let's use the word Bigfoot, since that's what everybody's familiar with. It's still some type of Bigfoot creature, although it may be in this subgenre versus this subgenre. It's still under that whole arching umbrella of what we're talking about as a cryptid.
Exactly. Had another super chat from Valerie Juice. She said, "We had the high beams on it. I saw its flawless dental work. Lack of light was not an issue. Trust me." Seeing something like that in the headlights, the black fur would probably stand out in the headlights. But my question, my thing is if its fur is completely black, once it's out of the light, it's gone.
Especially if it does this.
Yeah. Or closes its mouth so you don't see its teeth. John Wayne Gates says, "How many have read Howl of the Wolfman? I loved it." Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, who wrote that crap? Okay.
Yeah, some hack.
It's not Stephen King, I'll tell you that. No, it was pretty awesome. I enjoyed it greatly.
Yeah, there's 2 of them.
Robbie's proud of that line.
Yeah, that was when I read that.
But that is exactly something that I would say, though. That's that's why me and Doc laughed at that so much.
Yeah.
Because he texted me after he read that line. He said, "Dude, have you read that line yet?" I'm like, "Nope." He said, "Okay, text me when you read it." I said, "What?" He said, "You'll know."
You'll know.
And I did. So I texted him back. I said, crap, there's 2 of them. He said, "You got it."
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be like me and you and Ken hanging out together.
That's Greenville in November.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, that's Greenville in November when I come out there.
Billy, I always show my age. I can't help it.
Papa Bear says, "I've said it many times, but Declan Kane is becoming my favorite literary character." Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Oh yeah,
he does have a certain je ne sais quoi about him, doesn't he?
And I hate to say this, man, and y'all don't dogpile me, but I'm thinking I kind of like him as much, if not better than Clark. I don't know. I mean, I just
really,
I do, man.
Well, I really like
they're
Clark.
right there. They're right there, man. Yeah.
I really like Clark. I think he's a great character, but I almost find Declan a little bit more believable. Clark is almost the he's almost like the savant. He's like the jack of all trades. I'm like, oh, he can fly a plane. Of course he can. Oh, he's a virtual pianist. Of course he is. And it's like like James Bond. Declan. I think Declan is at his greatest when he's behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, and
when the shit has gotten completely off the table, and he's got some raw meat from the bar, a handful of guns, and a bottle of whiskey. It's like he MacGyver's his way out of shit. You're giving Clark the best technology, and the dude's a freaking savant. Of course, he's going to come out on top.
Well, and and the thing is, I think everybody probably who reads the books knows somebody kind of like Clark, and it's because some people are just naturally good at anything they try, anything they attempt, they're just good at it.
But Clark has got his ass drugged more than a few times in these books. It's not like he's writing him like Steven Seagal, where he never gets.
Oh yeah,
he's had to be airlifted, life flighted out a couple of times.
He's written more like a Van Damme character, where he gets his ass kicked for about 3/4 of the way until he finally figures out how to come out on top. That's why I like Clark, because he's and to me you got a fair point, Steve, and it's like he does know a little bit of everything.
He's a crack shot. He could fly a plane. He's a virtuoso pianist. He's a great cook. But you are correct. He gets his ass handed to him. He's very Joe Ledger like in that. But if he's done his job right, he's in the hospital at the end.
Yeah, and I think what people like about Clark is he doesn't have any backup in him.
No, and he leads from the front.
Yeah, he has no backup in him, and he leads back.
Not like y'all go do this. It's like y'all come on, follow me.
Mm-hmm.
That y'all try and keep up.
Yeah, and as a supervisor myself, that's how I strive to be, and that's the part about Clark that I like so much is he is that leader that says, y'all come on, follow me. He is a true leader, not a supervisor, not a I'm gonna sit back and tell y'all what to do and y'all go handle it.
He's a leader, not a manager.
He reminds me a lot of Captain Winters from Band of Brothers.
Yeah,
I can see that. I like that analogy.
When they pull Captain Winters up the regiment, and he was standing on that back behind there, and it was killing him that he couldn't get out there and lead when old Lieutenant Foxhole Norman was out there and about got Easy Company killed. And what was Colonel Sink when he was screaming at him to come back, and he walked right by him, didn't even pay a bit of attention to him, and told Lieutenant Spears to get out there, and it was killing Winters that he couldn't go out there and do it himself. That's what reminds me, or when I read Clark the first time, that's the first character that popped up was.
Yeah, that's a good comparison. It's a really good comparison, Robbie.
Edson Kidwell had a good question. He says, have any of you ever felt the presence of or the sound on your body or in a group? I can't say that I've ever experienced infrasound, but I have been in areas of the woods where I got headaches for no reason.
I've always.
I haven't experienced infrasound, but I've been in a car when my brother has let off a tear-ass fart, and it vibrated the bolts in the car. So I'm so sorry.
I about spit all over my keyboard.
But no, seriously though, it's one of those things you really don't hear anything, but just something rattles. It's like when somebody's phone's on vibrate, and all of a sudden you just feel the rattle of it going off. It's probably the same principle, but scary stuff.
I think I've always, anytime something like that has been around, I've always had that sense or that feeling. Like we've talked about DA and Doc, and I think even you've heard me say this, Steve, that situational awareness.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That kicks in.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's just that's just that survival instinct that's after a lifelong career of having to listen to that lizard brain, that's something that you're just in tune to.
Yeah.
Valerie Juice give us another super chat. She says, I'm describing accurately what I saw. It never stepped away. It stood its ground as we passed. There was something not natural about it. As someone who studies color genetics, please take my word. I'm definitely taking it at your word. I'm just trying to understand, what it is you saw. I mean, it sounds to me like you and I saw possibly even the same creature. It was one I saw on LBL was just as black as pitch. The only color I could see on it was the color around its eyes and the teeth. But when it decided to take off, it was gone. There was no way I was catching up with it. That thing was remarkably fast, but it basically didn't move a twitch until it would turned its head to track our movement, and that little bit of movement's what keyed me into it being there. And if I hadn't have spotted it, it would have stood there basically stock still until we were gone. But once it realized we were looking at it, then it was off like a shot. But there is something unnerving about dogmen, and I don't know if it's the fact that we're looking at what our brain's telling us shouldn't exist because it's essentially a werewolf standing there. But there's something just unnerving about seeing one, and to me it's almost worse than seeing a Bigfoot. Because a Bigfoot, your brain's trying to say, oh, maybe it's just a person in a costume, or maybe it's a Neanderthal, or maybe it's just an escaped gorilla. Your brain's trying to rationalize, but there's no rationalizing with a dog, man. You're essentially your brain screaming, I just saw a freaking werewolf. Seeing those is terrifying.
There's definitely more of a paradigm shift, I would think, with the Dogman. A Bigfoot I can explain away as some kind of a human ancestor or something like that. There's not any piece of science in my head that justifies an upright walking 8-foot tall dog. I'm sorry. That crunch you hear is me, stripping gears on the paradigm shift.
Grinding them gears.
Grinding them gears. Somebody just missed a shift.
Whoop. Steve just downshifted from 4th to 3rd.
Yeah. It's when you go from 3rd to reverse because you don't know the pattern in your shifter.
Robert D says, you want to find a dog man? Have Steve pee on a tree.
I would get to see, and yet I still didn't get to see that one.
It wasn't until like a year and a half later we even saw it on video.
Right, and then I became the butt of Nick Valente's jokes.
Penny Van says, I've seen hundreds of dogs and wolf breeds in my life. We even have timber wolves here. But if I see a dog man, that just F me up. I love dogs too much. Yeah, I love dogs. I've always been a fan of dogs. I think wolves are beautiful. But seeing that dog man, yeah, my hands shook for a while. It shook me up. I mean, and I was there in LBL because of the stories of the dog man. I wanted to see one, but I was just not really prepared for the reality of seeing one.
Yeah. I would have been doing the Doc and Robbie tap on my watch and de-ask the area of operations. Yeah.
Well, speaking of the LBL, I mean, was it late February, early March, DA and I, and hopefully Doc will be up there doing some research. I hope I see one. I really do.
I hope I'm better prepared if we see one.
We'll be better prepared for it. But I do. I want to see one. I want to have that experience. And I've been called stronger words than crazy for that, or for wanting to see that. But
I had my cell phone in my hand with the camera app up, but that thing was long gone before I ever even thought of turning it on.
Well,
I don't mind seeing it as long as that damn thing's from a distance.
It was about 30 yards away when I saw it.
I would like it to be moving perpendicular or away from me,
with nothing between us but a ditch.
30 yards is still real close. Holy crap.
Well, as fast as it went to that ravine, it went to that ravine in a second, maybe two, which means it would have covered the distance to me in just the same amount of time.
I'm not gonna say it here, but Greg wants us to do a little video conference so he can lay some stuff out. I want him to tell you the idea that he's got. I think this is one of the best ideas I've ever heard on how to bring one in. I think you're really going to like it.
I'll tell you what's not a good idea, and I found this out the hard way, is going down to Demumbers Bay at 2:00 in the morning and playing predator calls.
Yeah, not that. That's not the idea. So
not the brightest idea I've ever had in my life.
Although I would probably do that, even after hearing your story, I would probably be the one.
If you were there with the big gun, I would have been far less upset than I was when I realized I was surrounded.
Well, I'm saying I would be the stupid idiot that would hear your story, and I would go down there by myself and try it just to see.
If I'd have been any farther away from my van, I don't think I'd have made
it. Go ahead, Doc.
Nope. I just, yeah. I mean, I don't know, man. Like I said, I wouldn't mind seeing it, but from a distance.
I love you, brother, and I mean there's nothing but love in my heart. You're a special kind of stupid son.
Been said before.
Steve, I ain't never been accused of being the sharpest knife.
Valerie Juice gave us another super chat. She says it was a lump of black mass on the shoulder of the road in front of the buffalo enclosure until the face pushed out of the darkness, the blackness, like Ace Ventura's face pushed out of the rhino's butt.
That is a mental picture.
Yeah.
That's a future book.
Near the you're talking about the buffalo enclosures at LBL. You know, that's the funny thing. They have a herd of wood bison and a herd of elk at LBL that nobody's allowed to hunt. Why are they there? Yet they have calves go missing fairly frequently.
I think it's like putting the goat in the T-Rex enclosure.
You can eat the goat?
Hey, wait! Don't eat the long pig. Eat these. Eating long pig bad for business.
I would say that I will be significantly better prepared the next time I'm in LBL. I went there here having read the stories and I was not prepared for how that place felt when I was there.
Picked up our friend Rick along the way. He's got a bench order to carry firearms anywhere in the country.
I've been to some weird places. I've been to some creepy places, but I've never been anywhere like LBL. I prowled around the north end of LBL for the better part of a week, and in the entire time I was in North LBL, I never saw a single animal, not one, not even roadkill. Now, right across the canal over where we were staying in Grand Rivers. In Grand Rivers, there were raccoons and possums and all kinds of stuff around our campground, deer. I saw plenty of animals in Grand Rivers, but you cross that canal into North LBL, nothing. Didn't see anything for the better part of a week. Weirdest thing I've ever experienced.
Cricket won't hang out in that place.
Weird.
Well, Patty says, Steve, I was waiting for one of you to say that.
Oh, that he's a special kind of stupid.
Yeah.
Like he's telling me something I don't know.
Hey.
My wife tells me that all the time, that I'm an idiot for going looking for these things.
I wonder every day how I made it to 49. He ain't telling me nothing I don't know.
See, my wife just looks at me and just shakes her head. And, of course, me being who I am, I'm like, what? She goes, nothing. I'm like, what? She goes, you're just stupid. I'm like, well, yeah, I was born this way. You married me. Who's the idiot?
That's why I tell Annette that all the time. Camo Dad says, not sure if I'd want to pull the trigger unless it was necessary for sure. That's the boat I'm in, dude. I will not squeeze that trigger unless I don't have a choice. Unless it's to save my ass or the ass of somebody I'm with, I'm not engaging one because I don't think I'm going to come out on the winning end of it.
No,
Well,
Ken, I am not being that way. Just take the opportunity away from you.
I was waiting for that. Let me take the old man out. Be right back. Sorry, y'all.
Yeah, the sad thing is, I guess I'm like most of the world in how we perceive guns, and that we overestimate what their capabilities are. And I've gotten on a kick where I went down a rabbit hole and started watching a lot of these gun tubers on YouTube, and I'm realizing that even significant caliber weapons don't do as much damage to a human torso as you think it would. And
it all depends on where you hit them.
I was watching an episode about
during the Philippines War, when the 1911 was invented, there were officers that were putting 6 rounds from a 38 revolver into some of these guys, and they just kept coming.
Well, I was, reading your books, the Wild Hunt book, where everybody has those 50 GIs. Yeah, I was like, okay, that's going to be freaking badass. And then I watched a guy do a demonstration with him, and they compared a 45 ACP, the 50 GI, and then a 50 Action Express. And the 50 GI was much more like a 45 as far as its capability. It was like, oh.
It's basically a jumped up 45.
It's a jumped up 45, but it's a lot more, it's a lot easier to handle, a lot, the ammo's a lot lighter and whatever else. But, I guess it sounds bad, and I don't want to get political, but I was of the impression, like, well, you shoot it with that, you're going to blow its whole lung out, No.
Well,
there are too many things that do that.
Depends on the wound cavity and where you hit it too.
Well, and the ammunition too.
Yeah. Valerie Juice says, earlier that day around 4 p.m., we drove by the buffalo enclosure, and there was one buffalo in the metal chute. We saw that Dogman 10.5 hours later. Does not surprise me that you would see Dogman in and around that area. Same thing with Bigfoot. With the buffalo and those elk in that area, that is a perfect food source. And to be honest, I kind of half suspect that's why they're there. I think that they reintroduced elk and wood bison in LBL to try to curb some of the people disappearances.
They ordered takeout.
Yeah, they get brought in delivery. It's not delivery, it's DiGiorno. JD Smooth says these things are pure muscle and they'd be hard to take down. Yeah. When we're talking about a primate that's 9 feet tall and 1,000 pounds, bone density and muscle density is going to be much different than if you're shooting at a 180-pound tweaker. Rounds aren't going to punch quite like they would against a person. You've got to have thicker breastplates. You're going to have much thicker bone. For example, great example is in Denali National Park, a park ranger went out looking for a missing hiker. Turns out the missing hiker was eaten by a grizzly bear. This particular grizzly bear was 14 feet tall and 1,100 pounds. It was getting older and it couldn't really hunt anymore, so it started picking off hikers. Well, the bear charges the park ranger. The park ranger puts, I would think it was 7 rounds from a 7mm Magnum into this thing's chest. It keeps coming. He has the presence of mind to back away while reloading and put 7 more rounds in this thing, finally killing it. Once it was dead and they performed the necropsy, in the sternum bone of this grizzly bear, they found 6 .38 caliber slugs embedded in the bone. In its stomach, they found the 38 and the hiker it belonged to.
Yeah. That's not good.
You need a little more iron into that.
I think I'm going to take a page from Kevin Ortega's book in the Nightmare Hunter and just empty a magazine in the dick and hope I hit the femoral artery.
Well, a flare gun works pretty good too.
It does. It does.
Facts. Yep. The old flare gun to the giggle box will do it every time.
That's a great deterrent for just about anything.
It works for Bigfoot, rapists, meth heads,
Man.
Yeah.
Dogman was like, damn.
And Penny Van says, "All that poor old bear probably wasn't even right in the head anymore. He was on his way out and knew it." Yeah, it took the eaten hikers, so they had to put it down. And they found not only the pieces of the missing hiker they were looking for, but the gun he shot the bear with. And at point blank range, a 38 can do quite a bit of damage to a person, but it didn't even slow that bear down. The slugs were embedded in its breastbone, never even penetrated into the chest cavity. Didn't do anything more but than piss it off, which is, I think, exactly what would happen with a small caliber weapon against a Bigfoot or a Dogman.
Oh yeah, yeah. The 9 mils that we were carrying when I was making the unfortunate decision to piss on trees and Joe Bald, that would have been really bad. We would have been in serious trouble. You would have lasted a little bit longer because you had a longer magazine than me, but.
Well, at that point, if it's coming after us and all we're carrying is 9mm, the best thing you can do is just try to be chewy.
Yeah, I'm just praying that he's on a low sugar, low fat diet.
He's like, nope, can't eat him. No, it's bad for my diet.
Oh.
Kenneth Calloway says, but grizzly bear is the only animal that will really try to kill you if it hurt it. Polar bear try to kill you for no other reason. I mean, you don't have to hurt one to make it want to kill you. They're confirmed man-eaters.
So yeah, but between you and me, we would have had, without reloading, we would have had what, 29 rounds? 17 in yours and 12 in mine?
18 if you count the one in the pipe.
That's true. So 13 and 18. Okay, so 31. I still don't like those odds. At that point, you were still moving pretty quick too, so you probably would outrun me.
Well, I also had 2 additional magazines under my shirt, but I don't know if I would have had time to change it.
True.
Change your magazine during, change your underwear afterwards.
Yeah, it might have eaten me, but it would have eaten me over a pile of empty brass.
Fact.
They do the necropsy on that thing later, and they find 2 fat guys with bad hats. Far too many rounds of Spirit Gold Dot.
Yeah, how many freaking hollow points were in that thing? I think he gave them all he had.
He just shot $100 worth of ammo into this son of a bitch.
Hollow points ain't cheap, but I'm willing to give it every one I had.
Here, I don't need them anymore. You take them.
Yeah, these are all yours.
Need them anymore. Oh Lord!
I just take a 22 and shoot one of y'all in the knee and then haul ass.
If that thing had stepped out,
you ain't got to shoot me in the leg with a 22 to outrun me. You gonna outrun me on principle anyway.
If that thing would have stepped out of the trees at me and Steve, we'd have just heard the van leaving anyway because the girls were in the van.
Well, I mean, that night, me and you went to Joe Ball DA. All we had was our 2 9mm, and I was like, yeah. And I even said it. I said, we are seriously undergunned here.
Well, seriously, you would have heard the car, squealing away, and the next time you would have heard would be suck starting my own Block 26.
I tell you, yeah, because we didn't venture too far past that little bridge there where
we got about 30 yards back into the woods.
Yeah, we didn't
before we started seeing shit move.
Yeah, and then we were like, you know what? Yeah,
we aren't nearly well armed enough for this.
No, I think
he literally was scratching at the door to get into the meeting.
Hey, Kenai.
Kenai had to come
into the meeting. Did you miss the meeting? You see your friends?
Good question from Melissa Ratliff here. She says, do you think feral hogs are a food source for Dogman and Bigfoot? Those things are all over several states and overlap mapped cryptid sightings. I would say yes.
Well,
I would definitely say so, yes.
When we went to Texarkana last week, William Lunsford took us on that little tour. He said that is definitely happening down there, that feral hogs are a food source.
There was a report from a hog hunter in Texas who was getting ready to drop the hammer on a hog when he saw a Bigfoot basically step out of the bushes, grab it by the hind legs, and slam it against a tree trunk. It snapped the thing's spine, threw it over its shoulder, glared at him, and walked away with the hog.
Hawkeye was like, nope.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even shoot at that one. That one's yours.
Yeah, it was all yours, man. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, buddy.
You can have it.
Valerie Juice gave us another super chat. Thank you, Valerie. Says we were ran out of our campground, passing the Dogman listing to hear if it jumped on the horse trailer. I had one hand on my 12 gauge and the other hand on my 10 millimeter, my battle axe between my feet. I don't blame you. I mean, yeah, I was wishing I'd have had my Kel-Tec KSG when I saw the one I did. I had a 9 millimeter on and I was like, this ain't enough. This just is not enough. David Neal says, in an encounter like that, DA, I can think the only way you'd make it out is if the Dogman had the most unbelievable bad luck and it kept tripping over everything in its path. Yeah, ain't no way I'm outrunning it.
Well, it moves like an actual dog at it. And the amount of time it'd take you to run 12 steps, it would have covered it in 3 jumps.
Yeah.
I couldn't outrun Kenai right now.
Well, I was going to say,
Kenai's deceptively quick for a little guy.
well, he's got a busted hip and he's 11 years old and he still moves like crazy. He's a mess, aren't you, bud? See, you glad you got the meeting?
Boys, we're coming up on a 2-hour mark. Doc, you want to tell us a little bit about Dark Angel Medical?
Sure. So for those of you who are new to the channel, I'll tell you a little bit about my company. Those of you who are with us every week, then you're going to hear the spiel. But I started Dark Angel Medical back in 2011 with the prime purpose of the sole purpose of not only selling trauma kits, but to also educate people. So when there is a bad situation, they'll be better prepared. We have anything from minor trauma first aid kits all the way up to major trauma first aid kits. And to date, we have like 172 saves, which is pretty awesome. If you ever use one of our kits to save a life, you can let us know, and we'll replace what you use in that kit absolutely 100% free of charge. That's called our Kit for Life Guarantee. And all of our kits are HSA, FSA eligible. It's a great kit to have at home. It's a great kit to have in your car, in your boat, RV, anything like that, on your ATV. If you're going out and about in the woods doing anything like this, have something with you, because more than likely, if even if you don't see a cryptid, then there's still the potential of wandering around there in the woods and getting hurt. The worst time to need something is when you don't have it. So the website is darkangelmedical.com, and if you use the coupon code cryptid25, that'll give you 25% off of your order. So that's darkangelmedical.com. Check us out at YouTube. We have a YouTube channel with some really informative videos on there. We also have in-person training classes all over the United States. That's on our training tab on our page, and we also have an online training class available as well. So head over there to darkangelmedical.com, support a better-known small business, and we'll appreciate everything y'all do for us, because we appreciate y'all. Being prepared.
And go to darkangelmedical.com and be the difference.
That's right.
Before we jump on to the next one, we had a question. Josh Dalton gave us a super chat. He says, so DA, question, observation. If you overall reintroduction of big game over 411 case, do you think there would be a correlation? I think a lot of these places, like even in southern Missouri where elk were reintroduced, I think a lot of these are being reintroduced in some of these areas simply to help cull missing people. I think a lot of these national parks are reintroducing big herd animals to try to curb the number of people that go missing. That's just my theory. I could be wrong. But I think it is highly likely they're giving an alternate food source just so they'll quit picking off hikers. What y'all think?
I think it's a very good point.
Yeah, I think that's very plausible, to be quite honest with you.
You kind of eat the tourists.
Robbie, you want to tell us a little bit about Scalawag Tactical? Robbie, you're talking, but you ain't.
You just lose the sound.
He'll be right back. He'll be right back, folks.
Oh, bless him.
It was about that time in the show when
Yep.
Robbie loses audio.
Every time they're about.
It's usually sometime between the first and second hour, Robbie loses audio for some reason.
Yeah. The Black Knight satellite decides he's had enough of him.
Doc, now you're quiet. Did you mute yourself again?
Weird. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Steve. Doc,
Weird.
say something. Nope, can't hear you, man. Well, Robbie's back. Might have to have Doc reboot. Robbie?
Hey,
you got audio back. Hot dog.
He has returned.
what happened to Doc?
Doc's having the same
He has the same problem.
audio issues. Now it's his turn.
Yep. Yep. He just got robbed himself.
Doc,
Yep.
say something. Yep, we got you.
All
All right,
Hey.
Robbie, tell us a little bit about Scalawag Tactical.
All right, Scallywag Tactical, another one of our affiliate sponsors, another veteran-owned company, and this is probably the reason you want to get you a Dark Angel medical kit, because this knife will cut you. What, Doc? 3 ways?
Long, deep, and continuous.
Very true. Very true. This is the Jolly Roger. It's the privateer that DA had up. I think was that it?
It's privateer.
Privateer. Doc's got the mini jack right there. There's all kinds of cool name knives. That's the razor that DA's got. This is a really good company. Steve's got a really good story about how good they were to him, and how you don't see that if you go buy a Kershaw or Spyderco or whatever. You go pay $200, $300, $400 for these knives, and something happens to it, whether it's just a freak accident or you cause it. They don't care. You're just a number to them.
Mm-hmm.
Steve had an what's a good way to put it there, Steve?
I think the technical term is a fuck up.
Yeah, there you go.
Steve
had one of them.
Yeah, so I bought a privateer as my first Scalloway purchase, and because unfortunately it wasn't quite in my budget to get the stuff I really wanted, like the boarding axe and the bounty and stuff like that. So I bought the privateer, and I proceeded to use it like I would any other pocket knife I've ever bought. And I went to pry something out of a stapler that was jammed, and I hear this dink, and I realized that the top 1/8 of an inch of the knife is gone. Now, the privateer is made out of D2 die steel, which is, as I'm led to believe, one of the heaviest, hardest steels out there. However, hard means brittle. I wasn't that smart. And so I broke the end off. And of course, I felt like a complete idiot. And I emailed Craig just to basically express my stupidity. And he reaffirmed my stupidity and then said, send it back to us. We'll put a new edge on it for you. I'm like, oh, okay. So I sent it to him. It didn't cost me a dime. And I got it back in about a week. And it was very slightly shorter, but had a fresh edge on it. And I've learned how to take care of a good knife. I've since bought several others from him. But yeah, I mean, that very easily could have. First of all, he was under no obligation to give me the extra educational opportunity. And then he certainly was under no obligation to fix it. They don't advertise lifetime warranties. They don't advertise this stuff, so I thought it was pretty awesome. And I've learned how to use an expensive knife now. So that's good. I've since bought another privateer, gave it to my brother-in-law. I picked up the Orca, picked up the Jolly Roger. I have 2 mini jacks. You got a customer for life out of that.
Yep. And to piggyback off that, when you talk about the price, this, and Steve will tell you, this is a $45 knife if you buy this brand new. They have a nice little section called blemished blades. Most of the time, it ain't the blade that's messed up. DA's got one knife that, out of all the knives that between the 4 of us that we've gotten off the blemished blade section, one has a blemish. DA, you want to show them?
It's not a very big one. Yeah, let me grab that one.
The rest of it's blemishes
can
on the
find it.
box.
Yeah, most I'd say about what nine out of 10. That's what it is the box has gotten crushed or something like that.
Right there, that little scratch is all that was wrong with this one.
If he didn't point it out, you wouldn't be able to see it.
Mm.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't have noticed it.
And
I open the boxes on mine like a 10-year-old at Christmas. So, the blemished box doesn't bother me.
And like we said, get your Dark Angel medical kit. I'm pointing the right way in a minute, Doc. Get your Dark Angel medical kit because when you get one of these, I'm not scared of my gun because I know which end of that gun's gonna hurt me. This thing right here, DA and I are in the Hall of Fame for both cutting ourselves on camera.
Hall of Shame.
There you go, Hall of Shame. Yeah, not Hall of Fame. Same thing, right? DA.
The DA cut himself trying to demonstrate how sharp it was. We nearly went viral for filming a snuff film.
Yep, and mine was a lot dumber than DA's. I dropped my knife and tried to catch it. Doc immediately started laughing at me because he knew what was going to happen, and I bled for what 15, 20 minutes, Doc.
Probably, yeah.
Don't catch a knife. Don't catch a gun.
It happens. I mean, it's you drop something, you try to catch it. I tried to catch it, and I caught it. Not how I wanted to. So they will cut you. They are very sharp. I've had this knife close to a year, and I still have not had to put it on a stone. And these guys will tell you the same thing. These knives come very sharp, and they stay very sharp for a very long time.
They do hold an edge for a while.
They hold an edge very good. Excuse me, very well.
I primarily use my mini jack to cut the protective liner off of an IV bag. From working as a nurse, Doc will probably testify. You try to open up a bag of flagell, you practically need explosives and a chainsaw.
Yep.
And I swear they make the damn bags out of Kevlar.
Yeah.
Hey,
yeah.
I got the ultimate thing that these things will open: a cereal bag. Them some guns are bulletproof. Any of y'all tried to open a cereal bag know what I'm talking about. They slice right through them.
I use my Jolly Roger for opening Amazon boxes, and considering how much my wife orders from Amazon, it gets a lot of use.
And cardboard will dull a knife quicker than just about anything.
And it's still just sharp as hell. So, definitely go to Scalawag Tactical. Take advantage of the Blemish Blade sale and use discount code DARoberts10 for 10% off your order. And that does include the Blemish Blades. Yep. We had another super chat from Valerie Juice. Valerie, you were awesome. Thank you so much for all the chats tonight. She says, what year were the elk and bison put in the LBL? I don't know about the bison, but the elk were reintroduced in 1996. I couldn't find any information saying when the bison were reintroduced, but they started reintroducing the elk in 96. Which, considering how many people go missing a year on LBL, I can see why they would want to put up a large food source in there.
Well, on this little note, maybe we need to start talking about Brock's blades.
Yeah, we should. What?
The strap workouts, the torture straps. Those things are horrible. Ken got me started on these things called monkey straps. It's like the TRX straps. Good Lord, man.
Do I even want to know what he's talking about, Doc?
It's these straps you use your own body weight to work out with, and I take them. It's like a little pouch, like that big. I take it in my suitcase and just work out in the hotel room. Work out here at the house. Holy crap, those things are intense.
Our other affiliate is with BrockBlades.com. Ken Brock's in the chat under Brock Blades. Ken's a longtime friend of the channel. He's a career cop, and he owns BrockBlades.com. Whereas Scalawag Tactical's blades, if you buy two of the privateers and lay them side by side, you're not going to be able to tell them apart. They're high quality blades. They're fantastic blades, but they are mass produced blades. Ken's blades are all made by hand, and no two of them are identical. The one I've got here is called the Skane Dew. I've shown it on the air many times. I'm hoping to add to my collection soon. Doc's got a few more than I do.
Go ahead, Doc.
This is the street weasel. I love that name.
All of Ken's blades are handmade. So again, no two will be identical, and you can even order custom to have the design of the blade you want, the type of handle you want. So you can customize how you want the blade to be. And here we get 10% off your entire order by using discount code cryptid10 at checkout, or if it's a custom order, make sure you put that you heard about brockblades.com from here on this show, and he'll still give you your 10% off on your custom order as well. Like I said, Ken's a career cop. He's been a cop since God was a corporal, and he makes some pretty fantastic blades. And they're not just works of art; they're functional works of art. And if you know somebody that's first responder, veteran, current active duty military, any type of outdoorsman at all, maybe even if they're just cryptid hunters, the gift of a good blade is something that people will treasure, and a custom made knife even more so. So just keep Brock blades in mind. We've got a Hollywood. We've got a holiday season coming up soon, and for those of you who have people in your lives who are outdoorsmen, first responders, or military or law enforcement in some capacity, a good blade is always cherished. So definitely check out brockblades.com, and don't forget to use discount code cryptid10. Boys, I think we fairly well covered the topic tonight. We did get off on some tangents.
Always do.
Oh yeah, it wouldn't be one of our shows without us getting off on a tangent. But I think we illustrated our point about the sub classifications and how these fit into them. And again, just not trying to poke the bear or flog a dead horse or anything. But prior to 1970, there were no woo stories. And woo stories constitute about 3% of all cryptid accounts. Not saying the woo doesn't exist, but Robbie can tell you there's a phrase that defense attorneys hate, based upon the preponderance of evidence. Defense attorneys detest that phrase, and for good reason, because it is hard to argue with 97% of the evidence. Boys, you guys got anything to add?
I don't think so.
One thing
I think I added enough tonight.
One thing I did want to say is, you guys know Mike from Abnormal Investigations. He's been on the show before. Just an absolute solid dude. He runs the YouTube channel Abnormal Investigations. He is going to start doing YouTube lives on his channel on Saturday nights, and he's starting about now. He's holding off his live events until we're going off the air. And he's a big supporter of our channel, and he's going to encourage his folks to come check him out. And I just posted his link I believe I did.
It didn't fire.
It didn't fire. Failure to fire. Let me try one more time. See if that works this time. If not, I may have to go grab the link manually.
Might have to, because you got that
For some reason,
command.
The command is not working. So I will just put the link in the chat manually. Head over to Abnormal Investigations, because he's always talking about some pretty cool stuff. He does a lot of boots on the ground investigation. He's a good, solid dude. And I just posted the link. Hope you guys will go by his channel, give him a like, share, and subscribe. And since we're wrapping things up, if you're still in the mood to hear more about cryptids, he's got a great channel. So hope you guys will check it out.
Mike's a good guy. He's got a lot of good information. When you get back up on here and do another part 2 of the Oklahoma Girl Scout investigation.
Oh, absolutely.
Show him some love. That's how you get subscribers.
That's all I got to say about that.
So we're definitely wanting to support each other and support the other channels that are part of our organization. If you guys haven't been seeing them, we've been popping up tonight, and I'll go ahead and throw a few of them more. Make sure if you haven't subscribed to any of these channels, I hope you guys will go check them out. There's, of course, the Blondes and Booze. Krista from Blondes and Booze is one of our mods. I just posted the link to their chat. Make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe to them.
Marty.
Also, check out Marty over at Nona Boss. I'm posting the link to hers as well. So, make sure you can swing by. And Marty's getting closing in on the 1,000 mark, and be nice to help her get over the edge.
I think she's at what, 700 or so ish.
That's awesome.
Steve, you want to tell us a little bit about your channel? I'm posting the link to it too.
Oh, well, mine is completely off topic. Basically, as everybody knows, I work as an RN, much like Doc did for a long time. And kind of a regular occurrence of me coming home at night is the you ain't gonna believe this shit stories. And every nurse has got them, and there's Facebook groups dedicated to it. Well, as kind of a little catharsis for me and just some little entertainment for anybody who's interested, I started a little channel where I just record these little short 5 minutes or less videos, just telling stories about stuff that's happened in the nursing world. And like I say on the channel, some are funny, some are disgusting, and some probably shouldn't have been told. But it's catharsis for me and my mental health. And if it amuses somebody, then it's worth it. I call it the inebriant nurse, nurse with an M, it's for male nurse. I'm getting a pretty good reaction. It's been running for a couple of weeks now. I think I've got 105 subscribers or something like that. I think virtually every one of them is a subscriber to this channel. So I appreciate the love from everybody. But it's kind of like the Tyrion Lannister tells nursing stories. I drink and I know things, and that's pretty much how it goes.
Absolutely, and they're entertaining stories. I've definitely had my share of good solid belly laughs at the stories. So definitely check those out. And again,
the love from y'all means the world to me. So
I just posted the link, y'all. So make sure you swing by and give him a like, share, and subscribe. Robbie, you want to tell us a little bit about what's really out there?
Yep. What's really out there, or as we have all come to know and love to call it, DAX Machina Light. Because if you like the content here on DAX Machina, you're going to like what we put out on what's really out there. Johnny and I, Steve's kind of been under the weather a little bit. The other Steve, not that Steve, or that Steve, or one of them Steves.
This Steve was under the weather at some point.
Yeah, but the other Steve's been under the weather too. So I digress. But we just dropped I think the episode about the Pickens County UFO, which we talked a little bit about that one on our UFO show. And then we try to drop a show every Wednesday if we can, if it works out that way. We're probably at like 374 subscribers, so we're pushing towards that 500 mark where we can finally get a little bit of monetization where the money for all the money for putting the show together doesn't come out of my pocket. Love to have a little bit of help. So, and I've gotten a lot of support from this channel. We've got a lot of subscribers. But it's just little 30 to 45 minute ish shows. We just pick one topic, kind of focus on it, and just kind of laser focus in on it versus where we hit more of a broad spectrum here. It's just more of a focus thing. And also that we're part of the 4-channel thing that with DAX Machina, what's really out there, Blondes and Booze, and Naoma's opened out that we're getting ready to do a big 4-part series on I don't think we've released what we're doing yet, have we, DA?
No, not yet.
Yeah, we've released it. We're doing it. We just haven't released what we're doing yet.
Group project.
The teaser's up, but not the trailer.
So there you go. You just got to tune in to find out. And to explain that how that's going to work is, say wherever we go, if the Blondes and Booze are going to do the investigation part of it, Naoma's going to do the overall broad
history
of the area or whatever we're doing, and then what's really out there, we'll focus in on a smaller part of what the investigation is doing. Then the Blondes and Booze will be going and doing an actual investigation, DA, Doc, Steve, and I may be involved in the investigation, but they would primarily do that part. And then at the end of the week on Saturday, we'll have the big breakdown here on this show. So you get a 4-part, and it kind of maybe introduces some people over here that don't necessarily know much about the other channels and vice versa. just a way to kind, like DA said, of us kind of working together as a community.
Crossover.
Yeah. Or as Johnny liked to say, some cross pollination is in the works.
There we go.
So, most of y'all that follow us over here, or follow me on there. I've seen most people in the Blinds and Booze, but I'm sure there's plenty of people that don't cross over. So that's the whole thing that we're wanting to do, is getting everybody crossed over and just bringing that awareness to everybody.
Absolutely.
I just subscribed to Marty's channel because I realized I was not a subscriber. So
Marty puts out some good shows.
Yes, she does. Yes, she certainly
and
does.
Pretty much does every bit of it by herself.
And she gets some really good guests on there too.
Yeah.
I've been jealous of a few of her guests.
Yeah, she hustles.
She certainly does.
And the same thing, Brandy does too. I've been to two different conferences with Brandy, and that girl works her tail off. And Krista does. A lot of people don't realize how much Krista does for all of our channels. Krista's a moderator on my channel. She's a moderator on this channel. She's our Facebook groups and things like that. She works her tail off to help all of us. And, a lot of people don't realize how much work those girls put into their stuff and helping us out too.
Absolutely.
So, we don't mind shouting them out because they do help us more than a lot of people know.
Very much so. And folks, one thing we always talk about is the 22 a day foundation. We lose 22 veterans a day to suicide, and September is Suicide Awareness Month, so doubly so. Let's keep folks in mind, from whatever walk of life, but especially, if you know somebody that is a first responder or a veteran or active military or law enforcement in any capacity, be they, or corrections officers, security, patrol officers, for your first responders, your medical staff, your nurse, even your doctors sometimes, the people that drive the ambulance from all the way up to the emergency room staff. Keep those folks in your thoughts and prayers, and keep them in mind, and reach out to them once in a while, because you never know when that hey fucker, you awake 2 a.m. text, you get them once in a while. It might be what pulls them back from the edge that day. And I can tell you, the four of us standing here tonight, and I'm not just blowing smoke, we've all had our demons. I've faced mine, and I've faced mine with the help of pretty much all four of these guys present. They've been there to talk to me when I've had bad days, and I have had some bad days. And I appreciate these guys. These guys are brothers in every sense of the word to me. And I would bleed and die for these guys. And I hope they know that I would do the same for them. But, reach out to those who have seen and experienced things that the human mind wasn't necessarily meant to comprehend, be that combat, or in the case of law enforcement, finding dead bodies or pulling a burned victim out of a car. And then some things that the medical staff see that, well, there's just no way to describe it unless you've worked in that field. They see some pretty horrific stuff on a daily basis, and it takes a toll on people. It really does. So keep those folks in your prayers. Reach out to the people you care about. Make sure that they know that you care about them. You might be the voice that keeps them off the ledge. And thank you guys, each and every one of you guys, for doing that. So let's get 22 a day down to 0. That would be the goal. That is my dream. I've been to too many funerals and seen too many folded flags handed out in my day, and I really hope the next funeral I'm at where a folded flag gets handed is my own, because I'm tired of burying brothers. And I'm hoping mine isn't for many years to come. I've got lots of books yet to write. But again, all for those of you who've helped push the newest book into the charts, thank you guys so much. It went from a #1 new release to a bestseller on Amazon. The books are doing well. Thank you guys so much for making that possible, making my dreams come true. I've wanted to be a writer since I was a kid, and I really finally feel like I'm actually a writer. I mean, I've had that imposter syndrome going on for years, like feeling like I wasn't good enough, feeling like that, I was just wasting my time. And I've even I've talked to all three of these guys at one point about, maybe I should just give it up. And, that thought's got in my darker days that has gone through my mind. But I love writing. I love telling stories, and I love sharing these episodes and these stories with you folks. And thank you guys for making all that possible. So in the tradition of DAX Machina, we are going to lift a glass to those we've lost, to those who've gone before us, and those who have been there all along fighting that same fight. Where whatever demons they're facing, just let them know that you care about them, and you'll face the demons with them. There's an old song called "The Parting Glass," and an old Irish song, and if you read the lyrics, it's not just talking about a guy leaving the bar at the end of the night. You read between the lines, it's really kind of a metaphor for losing people along the way. And my favorite bit from the song, if I can do it without tearing up, is it says, "But since it fell unto my lot that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and softly call. Good night and joy be to you all." Good night, everybody.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you for joining us. Catch us again Wednesdays and Saturdays on DAX Machina. A special thanks to all our channel members and Patreon supporters. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe.
Hey, boys.
Hey, boys.
Hang on.